My name is Franklin, one of the two co-founders of the Northern California Spinal Cord Injury Foundation, also better known as NorCal SCI. Welcome to tonight's presentation on making healthy Thai cuisine at home with Arash Bayatmakou and Shelley Wood. We have a really tasty and amazing presentation, according to Arash. So we'll wait to see what he's got cooking. As usual, we are grateful to our donors who have made programs like this possible. So thank you to the continual support that they offer us. We are recording tonight's presentation. So those of you who may need to jump off at any point during tonight's presentation, no worries. We're going to be sending an email probably within the next 2 to 3 days. We're going to be sending you the recorded video, as well as Arash has committed to making all the recipes available too. So we'll send everything to everyone at one time. And then finally, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to send them to us via chat. Shelley and I will field those questions and pose them to Arash, or sometimes Shelley might be able to answer the questions as well. So please use the chat feature on your screen, as everyone has been muted, just to keep a lot of excessive noise. So without further ado, let me get started and introduce our presenter. Shelley is a lifelong advocate of nutrition. When she's not working with her patients, she can be found in her greenhouse or kitchen. She obtained her BS degree in nutritional science from San Jose State University in 2012. And her master's degree in public health in 2016 from the University of New England, and has been working at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center, one of the top spinal cord injury rehab hospitals in the country, since 2013. She currently works in the outpatient clinic of the hospital, seeing primarily those with SCI, and also spends time working with complex GI issues in the outpatient gastroenterology clinic. And also she's a member of our advisory board, so we're grateful for her service to our organization. Arash experienced his C5, C6 incomplete injury in 2012 as a result of a fall. He has given numerous talks and shared his story of perseverance, recovery, and challenging limits to audiences large and small, including a TEDx talk. He's a Bay Area native and credits his California upbringing for his love of the outdoors, nature, and cooking activities he still cherishes as he continues to travel, explore, and enjoy new experiences. He's married with 2 kids and also serves on our board of directors. And again, we're grateful for his service to our organization. So without further ado, here are Arash and Shelley. Take it away, please.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Shelley.
Hi, Arash. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
So excited about tonight. I have to tell you guys, this has been, I've been kind of counting down till tonight. So lots to cover. And I know, I think Shelley's excited about this topic too.
I am. I adore Thai food. I love it. I love the flavor. I love the freshness of it. Just fantastic cuisine. And I love how simple it can be to mimic the flavors that you get.
Yeah, I think when Thai food first came around, a while back, and now it's so kind of everywhere, but I remember when I was first eating it, just seemed like this is the most crazy, how would I ever cook this? Like, this is so strange. And then I've traveled to Thailand twice. It's one of the only places I've actually been back to since after my injury. So I went for my honeymoon after my spinal cord injury, but I was there once before. And man, you think Thai food's good here. It's to another level in Thailand. And there's so much to say. I'm not going to be able to do it all, and I've got a lot of cooking to do, and Shelley's got so much great information to share. So I just want to jump into a couple of just general concepts real quick about Thai cuisine. Of course, we can never do it any justice. Again, I have to preface, I'm not a Thai myself. I'm not an expert on Thai food. I just love it, and these are my inspirations on some great dishes, and my cat is trying to get into my food. So one concept that I wanted to share is Thai food is based on the principle of the balance of 4 flavors: salty, sweet, spicy, and sour. That's the foundation of most Thai food, is finding a balance. Some dishes are more sour, more spicy, more salty, whatever it is. So that's one thing I wanted to share with you. Another is that ingredients that are found in a lot of Southeast Asia are common in Thai food: garlic, ginger. But I wanted to share a couple of differences. Oh, it's right here in front of me. So Thai food uses a lot of shallots. If you don't know what a shallot is, it's like a little red onion. It looks like that. It's often used, and in Thailand, they're really small. They're like really, really tiny, and people will sit for like hours peeling buckets of shallots. But they have a little bit of a different flavor than your typical onion. Again, it doesn't really matter if you're making something and you have onion, it's fine. But I just wanted to share that with you, that Thai food uses a lot of shallots in place of like a yellow onion or red onion. In addition to an ingredient, I'm not really going to be using it tonight, although I might, but this is lemongrass. It's used in a lot of Thai cooking as well. It's in some of the things that we're going to be making, but I got some of the fresh stuff here to show you what it looks like, and it's so awesome and it smells so good. And then in keeping with what I've been trying to do, I got pretty much everything at a Safeway for this cooking session. But the Thai food is something, you do need a couple of specialty ingredients if you want to make it really kind of taste more authentic or more Thai. So I did have to get a couple of things not at a traditional grocery store. But keep in mind, you can pretty much get everything. And these days they sell, I was just there, they sell pad Thai sauce and all these things that I didn't even think you could find. But so keep that in mind, that we're trying to do our best with I want to always try to make it as accessible for everyone and not use ingredients that are super hard to find. But if you really want to get some of these great flavors, you do need to kind of go to an Asian grocery store or online or whatever it might be. So 3 dishes to cook in not very much time. If it's okay, Shelley, I'm going to just describe real quick what I'm going to start doing, and my camera person will be here in just a moment, and then I'm going to pass it to you because that's where we're going to go.
Perfect. Sounds good.
So the first thing I'm going to make is just a red curry. If you've seen a Thai menu, you've seen yellow curry, red curry, green curry, and this is the really easy way to make it at home. You buy curry paste. I got this at Safeway. Where's my camera? There you go. Red curry paste. So very straightforward. You buy the curry paste, whatever color you like. Green tends to be the spiciest. Yellow tends to be the mildest. And you combine this with coconut milk, which I buy at Costco because I get organic coconut milk for very, very cheap. This Thai brand right here. And all I'm going to do before I pass it to Shelley's, I've got my pot that's warmed up. I'm going to just put the curry paste into my pot, warm it up, no oil or anything needed, and then combine it with my coconut milk and get it into this nice kind of infused color. And then I'm going to add a bunch of stuff to it in a few minutes. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And I'm going to pass it to Shelley to take it from here.
Okay. So Arash, he sparked an interest in me to visit the topic of taste buds. Food is really enjoyable for many reasons, but one of the main ones is because it tastes good, obviously. Arash talks a lot about finding balance every time he cooks, actually. I've heard him say, I need a little vinegar, I need a little bit of this, a little that, a little sweetness, playing with flavor. So make sure that there's a combination of different flavors in there, and it adds interest. Taste is one of our basic senses, and it's a physiological quality that's helped our ancestors to survive. So it has a reason. Our taste buds actually have a reason. Taste also triggers our body to start digesting food. That's beautiful. So it starts the digestive process. For example, we have an enzyme in our mouth called salivary amylase that is released the minute we eat something starchy like bread or rice or pasta. It triggers that enzyme to start working to break down and digest nutrients. And then this triggers a cascade of effects all the way down the line into your stomach and your intestines. So basically what the taste of food is chemical compounds in the foods, which talk to receptor cells in our taste buds, and the cells communicate with our brain to help us identify what the taste is. We have these receptors to identify tastes that are sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and the fifth one is savory, also called umami. And we talk a little bit about umami in our last presentation for the Lunar New Year. So basically, foods that are sweet are usually high in carbohydrates, sugars, which are our body's primary source of fuel. And scientists think that we evolved to love sweetness because this gives our body a burst of energy. So when we're looking for energy, we typically kind of grab something that's sweet. And then foods that are spoiled or rotten usually taste sour. So think of like old milk or something like that. So it's thought that we evolved to identify the taste of sour as a protection. Not all sour foods obviously are unsafe, but initially, like way back, sour tastes were kind of a trigger that, hey, be careful, this might not be good for you. It might make you sick. Saltiness is another taste. And interrupt me anytime, Arash, you have to say anything.
You're good.
Okay, so salt, not too much salt, but salt, sodium, it's essential for electrolyte and fluid balance in our bodies. And it's thought that we evolved to like salty foods for that reason. Like for instance, when we sweat, we lose a lot of salt, we can become dehydrated, which can lead to many complications with our bodies. Too much salt over time can increase the risk for high blood pressure and stroke and heart attack and other things. But salt is needed in a moderate quantity every day, depending on your situation. Many toxic foods are bitter. So that's another thing that we might have evolved to avoid bitter flavors because some certain bitter things out in the wild are poisonous and that kind of thing. But you know, just as with sour, not everything is dangerous. Like coffee, for example, is everything to me, and that is bitter. And then the last one, savory or umami is another taste. It's been studied for its ability to actually increase appetite and was first studied in the early 1900s. And we talked a little bit about MSG last month. It's a natural umami flavor from glutamic acid. It's usually found in cheese, aged cheese, meat broth, that kind of thing. So where I'm going with all of these flavors is getting familiar with different ingredients in your kitchen and figuring out ways to combine them to kind of fire up your taste buds is a really good way to enhance cooking and make it enjoyable and fun. So learn to experiment with sauces by adding different flavor profiles like Arash does. And that will take your healthy cooking in a new direction and should spark some creativity in your kitchen.
Perfect transition time. Come on over, please. Let me show you what I got here. So I put the contents of that can, and again, remember, I'm going to send recipes from now on. You guys got me to do that. But I used that whole little jar of curry paste, and I used 1 full can of coconut milk. And so all I did was heat them together in the pot, and now it's mixed up nicely. It's got a nice orange color. And so I'm going to make just a mixed vegetable curry. You can use whatever you want. I'm using this combo. I like different colors, as I always talk about. I've just got carrots, mushrooms, green beans, baby corn. This is something you buy in the can. Very easy, very inexpensive, low in calories, whatever, but used a lot in like Thai curries and Thai cooking. And then some tofu. This is tofu that I just cooked a little bit ahead of time. You don't have to, but I needed to do that for my other dish anyway. You can just use raw tofu, or again, if you're eating meat, this is whatever meat of choice. You could put it in raw, chicken, beef, whatever it is. You don't need to cook it ahead of time. You can put it in and all you're gonna do is cook everything slowly in this liquid. So I've got my veggies, my tofu, everything here. I'm gonna just dump it into my curry that's bubbling away here. Try not to splatter myself too much. And all I want to do, because I'm going to let this cook for a little while, is I just want to make sure my proportion is right, that it's not too dry, it's not too soupy. I don't like my curry to be too liquidy or consequently too dry. I like some liquid in there. So
are you serving this over something?
Yeah, so this is something you're gonna have with rice. So this is traditionally in Thai food, they don't, from what I know, eat a lot of bread. In southern Thailand, they do a little bit, but this is gonna go with rice. So,
Okay.
and it's just gonna cook for like 20 minutes on its own. So this is looking good. I know my mushrooms and green beans are gonna release a little bit of liquid as well. So all I'm gonna do, and when you use the curry paste, you don't need to add really, excuse me, anything else. I'm just adding this for fun because I talked about lemongrass, and I'm just gonna like show what you do with it if you're gonna use it. The chili paste already, the curry paste already has lemongrass in it, but I like just adding a little bit. You kind of cut the ends off, and if you want to eat it, I'm gonna pull it out later. I'm just adding it for aroma. So literally, all I'm gonna do is just kind of bash it a little to get it to release its aroma, and I don't mind a little extra lemongrass flavor. You can't eat this, you know, it's too woody. So if I were to cut this up to eat, I would do it differently. But right now, I just want the aroma. I just wanted to share this with you guys. So I'm gonna put that straight in there, and later I'll pull it out. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to see how this looks in a little bit once it cooks, and I'm gonna put the lid on it and move it to the back and get ready for dish number 2. So if it's okay, Shelley, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, I do have a quick question for you. One of our audience members wants to know if that's electric or induction, your stove.
It is, it's an electric stove. Yeah, it's not induction. It's just an electric stovetop.
Awesome, thank you. So, okay, you just put tofu in there. Let's talk a real quick moment about tofu. We talk about tofu a lot, so we're going to talk about it some more. So tofu, it's a bean curd, as it's often called, bean curd, made by pressing curdled soy milk into a block. Much of the tofu we have in stores actually has calcium because calcium sulfate is used as a coagulant, just like cheese, in the process of forming tofu blocks. So tofu is actually a really good source of calcium. I don't think that I've mentioned that before. Years ago, there were fears that the plant estrogens of soy could lead to breast cancer in women, but those studies were flawed because they looked at the effects of soy on rodents, which process soy a lot differently than humans do. So more recent studies have looked at people actually and have found improvements in all kinds of things from hot flashes, coronary heart disease, lowered cholesterol, decreased osteoporosis, probably from the calcium, and decreased prostate cancer with soy consumption, among many others. So I encourage you to look up current research about soy, and definitely it's not as scary as people thought it was years ago. Compare these studies with the ones that look at the risks for regular red and processed meat consumptions. Now compare tofu to that, and tofu could suddenly become a staple for you. Remember, when you use tofu in recipes where tofu kind of stands alone, you've got to press the water out of it. Tofu is very porous, and it will take on whatever flavors you give it, but you have to get a lot of that water out and for it really to saturate with flavor. Otherwise, it can be really bland. And I think I'm going to be dispelling problems with tofu for the rest of my life. And the reason why a lot of people think tofu is horrible is probably it was ill prepared and not pressed. You know, the water is still in there. If there's water in your tofu, there's nowhere for your flavor to really go. And so it becomes really boring and bland, and it turns people off from it. So I just want to encourage that you try tofu, make it a regular part of your cooking. It's full of iron, potassium, manganese, selenium, phosphorus, magnesium, copper, zinc, vitamin B, super full of nutrients as well as protein, a decent source of protein. So consider using tofu as part of your cooking, like Arash does. And Arash is gone. So coconut milk, he used coconut milk in this dish. A little bit of coconut milk goes a long way. Good flavor, nice and rich and delicious. Just remember that over 90% of its calories come from fat. So, and that is saturated fat. Coconut is one of the plant-based fats that has saturated fat in it. He's back.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I think I'm at a good stopping spot.
Because I got that curry paste from Safeway, but I wanted to show you just guys. This is the brand I really like for other. This is a Thai brand. So this is red curry, and then yellow curry, and this is much more than one serving. That little jar I used all in one thing. So this is much more cost effective. It's like $4 for this whole thing versus $3 for that little jar. So if you could make it to like a 99 Ranch or any other place that might have it, I really suggest you just keep it in your fridge. It stays good forever. So I just wanted to show you that and then transition us to the next dish. Is that okay with you, Shelley?
Yeah, and then somewhere along the way, I think it would be great if you could tell us kind of the red, yellow, and green curry differences, like if in a nutshell, if you have that. I think that would be
happy to. I can do that easily right now. And to take it to the next level is then to make your own curry paste, which is fun. But the common ingredients in pretty much any curry paste are garlic, lemongrass, shallots, oftentimes galangal, which is a root vegetable, kind of rhizome, kind of like ginger. Very common, very wonderful Thai flavor. Chili pepper, and usually like a little bit of salt or sugar or something. It is pretty well seasoned, so I didn't add anything to that. I didn't add garlic. I didn't add salt. It's usually plenty salty. But those are the main things. And then the things that kind of distinguish, like green curry tends to be the spiciest. It uses green Thai chilies, which are the most raw. Because as a chili pepper ages, stays on the plant, it turns more red and becomes milder. So the green chilies, green Thai chilies are the spiciest, which is why green curry paste tends to be the spiciest. Oftentimes green curry paste will also have like maybe cilantro or some other greens in it. And then red's kind of in the middle. If my wife would let me, I would make green because I like really spicy. Yellow is like a nice mild curry. If you're making this for people who aren't used to those flavors, start with yellow. It has like a lot of the other good stuff, the garlic, shallots, ginger, lemongrass, all that. And it has very little of the chili pepper. So that's kind of the quick breakdown on curry paste. The second dish we're gonna make is something I almost always order from Thai food places, not pad Thai, but pad ki mao, often called drunken noodles as well sometimes. It's a wonderful dish, and it's once I learned how to make it, like I love it. I order it, I make it at home. It's probably one of my favorite Thai dishes. Yeah, to make it, you need to have everything prepped. I've talked about this in my stir frying cooking session, as well as I think last month with the Lunar New Year and Chinese cuisine. When you're stir frying anything, things happen really fast. So you've got to be ready to go. So these are my ingredients for the pad ki mao. I'm using a little bit of baby corn again, red bell pepper, the other half of that tofu. Now, if I was making this all right now, I would have pre-cooked my protein, whether it's meat or tofu. It's just easier to do it that way. I've also got bean sprouts, which is not traditional to pad ki mao. It's more goes with pad Thai, but I like it. And then Thai basil. Traditionally, this dish calls for holy basil, which is a different type of basil. That's harder to find. It's really hard to find fresh. You can find it in like jars and stuff too, but I'm just using Thai basil. It'll work just fine. So these are my main ingredients, but the king of the dish is the sauce. So there is, this is where you do need a couple of specialty ingredients if you want to make it right. So come over here. I just want to show you. I made the sauce ahead of time, but I want to show you what's in there. Oyster sauce. This is common in Thai cooking. This is made from fermented oysters. Sounds weird, but if you don't, when you smell it, it might smell weird, but it tastes like Thai food. So this is something and I buy the less sodium kind, so it has less sodium, obviously. So that is one thing that's in there. Again, I'll tell you the proportions in my recipe. Oyster sauce. This is called dark soy sauce or black soy sauce. This is a Thai style soy sauce. It's less salty. It's more like molassesy. It's really got a nice flavor than your typical soy sauce, but you can use regular soy sauce. So that's one you can easily substitute out. I'm just using it because I have it, because I like it. And then oyster sauce you can buy. I got this at Safeway. You can buy this pretty much everywhere now. The one that's kind of harder to find is this called Golden Mountain sauce. This is another, just like, you know, kind of like soy sauce. It's a Thai seasoning sauce. This is something you want to use in smaller amounts because it's got a concentrated flavor. It's salty, but this is also in this sauce. And then lastly, fish sauce. This is important, and you do need this for Thai cooking, and you don't need to go to a specialty store. They sell Red Boat. This is a really good brand. Trader Joe's sells this now. I think Safeway and other places have it too. But you do need fish sauce, and fish sauce, the use of fish sauce is what separates Thai cuisine from, like, let's say Chinese, a lot of Chinese dishes, or Japanese, where they use a lot of like soy sauce and other soy kind of products. Thai, Vietnamese cuisine, Indonesian, they use more fish sauce. And this is made out of fermented fish. And again, when you open the bottle, it smells weird. I'm gonna admit, it doesn't smell great. But if you don't use it in your cooking, it will not taste like Thai food. So use this. So in this dish, in this sauce, were all four of these went in here. And this is a dish that I don't wing it. I use the correct proportions. There's a wonderful lady on YouTube who I love, who's got a whole Thai cooking channel. And this is her kind of like base sauce recipe. So I fully give her the credit for it. I can send a link to that too. She's awesome. I've learned so much from her. But I've got my sauce ready to go, and I've got my veggies ready to go, and I've got my noodles. I looked everywhere for flat noodles, like wide noodles, and I couldn't find them. I didn't find them at Safeway. I went to the Asian store. They didn't have them there. So I used a different type of fresh noodle. These are kind of like these big fat, they're called bun noodles for Vietnamese style. So I'm using these. I don't know how it's going to turn out, so bear with me. But I definitely failed on that front. So I'm going to get this going real quick. All I'm going to do is add a little bit of vegetable oil. Again, not olive oil, nothing like that. You want a neutral oil for stir frying. So I'm going to I've got my pan hot. I'm going to add a little bit of vegetable oil in here. And the first thing to go in is garlic and a jalapeno. Traditionally, you would use a much spicier Thai chili here. You do want that flavor, but I'm keeping it mild, and you can do the same. So I have one jalapeno and about 5 cloves of garlic. You do want a lot of garlic for this dish. And this is for like 2 servings. So I'm going to put those in. Once those brown up in a few seconds, I'm going to add my veggies, get those going, and the noodles as well, and check back in just a couple of minutes if that's all right.
I'm going to squeeze one question in here for you real quick.
Go for it.
And this is a good question, actually. So you were talking about the curries, and you didn't mention curry powder or any curry. Is there curry in these pastes that you're using?
Curry is a made-up term. Curry means nothing. Curry, there is a tree called a curry leaf, a curry tree with curry leaves, which is used in Thai cooking, and it's hard to find fresh, but curry leaves are a real thing. Curry powder is a made-up term that the British used in colonizing India. So when you see curry powder, curry is a combination of turmeric, cumin, coriander, cinnamon, cloves, a bunch of different spices, and every curry powder is a different recipe, and it tastes and smells slightly differently. So there is no such thing as like curry as an ingredient. There's Japanese curry, which is a whole different flavor. I don't even know necessarily. I don't know enough about Japanese curries to know what goes in there. So just kind of like keep that in mind, that the term of curry has been way too overused and bastardized, and it basically means nothing. In this case, when you go to a Thai restaurant, you see, like I said, yellow curry, red curry, pumpkin curry, Burmese food, they make curry. Now it's come to mean like a stew with meat or veggies or whatever that you serve over rice. So in this case, I showed you the Thai curries. That's Thai curry, but curry powder is not an apt substitute for this. Curry powder doesn't have lemongrass and shallots and galangal and other things. So you cannot substitute curry powder for the paste that I just used, but that's a great question. Thank you.
There you go. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about protein, which tends to come up in our presentations and discussions. And Arash and I are both very big advocates for a plant-based diet, meaning that having a little bit of animal-based protein in your diet is okay, but it's a lot more beneficial to base your diet around plants. So what is protein? While we watch him work, I'll tell you, protein is an essential building block that the body requires to make muscle tissue, hormones, carry oxygen, fight infection, repair damage. It's essential. We do need protein. How much do you need? Not that much. We don't need as much as we think we do, unless you have a wound or a pressure injury or a burn or something like that. You likely don't need as much protein as you think you need. Too much protein can actually lead to increased calcium and bone loss, impaired renal or kidney function, increases the risk for certain cancers. There's plenty of studies about the impact red meat in particular has on health. So I highly recommend that you look up current studies on red meat and processed meat I mentioned earlier. I want to remind folks in the spinal cord injury community that those with spinal cord injuries do have a greater risk for heart failure and stroke than those without injuries. So replacing red and processed meat like bacon and ham with protein sources that are plant-based like beans, legumes, tofu, which Arash is using a lot of tonight, can reduce disease risk, and it's been shown to help lower LDL cholesterol, which is the type that collects in the walls of the blood vessels. So this is one main reason why Arash and I really strongly advocate for a plant-based diet. With regards to global consumption of protein, most Americans eat double the amount of protein that's actually needed. Average protein intake here is about 100 grams, and most people don't need 100 grams of protein unless they have some of the circumstances like I mentioned earlier, like wounds and burns, things like that. But we're an exception when it comes to excessive protein intake. Many parts of the world are completely meat-free already, or they have really low consumption of meat. Countries in Asia and Africa follow low or meat-free diet patterns for many reasons, like religious mandates, lack of funds, or lack of access to meat. And these cultures make produce, grains, and legumes the focal point of their meals. Vegetables and grains are the main course, with meat, if they eat it at all, as a side dish or a garnish, if you will.
Can I interrupt for one moment, Shelley?
You may, yeah.
All right. So if you can come on over, I'm just showing you, that was in just like the time Shelley was talking, 3 minutes, and this dish is almost done. All I did was I threw in all my veggies and tofu. I gave them a minute or two to stir fry a little. Then I added my noodles. And then I only added about half the sauce. That's it. I'm kind of letting it sit. I kind of want the noodles to stick just a little bit to the pan and get a little bit charred, which I like. And this is coming together real nice. And at the end of the dish, I'm adding my bean sprouts and some basil, Thai basil. But if you have regular basil, that's fine too. Thai basil.
Did you grow that Thai basil?
I didn't. It's not the season for it. It's too cold right now. But I am going to grow Thai basil. But my garden is going crazy right now with bok choy and cilantro and some other greens. But and I think I mentioned this before. The reason you add the basil and the bean sprouts at the end is I don't need them to cook. All I need them to do is just kind of wilt a little bit. I like the crunch of the bean sprouts. That's why I added them in. And that's pretty much it. This is going to be. I am going to turn the heat off and show you guys. Oh man, I wish you guys could smell this.
Every time we do this, we want you to smell. I ate before this presentation, by the way.
That was smart. This tastes and smells like what I get in the restaurant. So I'm just going to show you.
That's beautiful. And note the colors. We always talk about having a colorful plate. There's a lot of color in here.
Look at that. Just a beautiful, I'm just serving it up so you can see everything's ready to go. It took about 3.5 minutes to make. Beautiful, and I would even maybe top it with a little cilantro. And there you go. There's your pad ki mao. Ready to go. My favorite noodle
You're
dish.
not the only one. One of our other audience members said that's her favorite.
Oh, great. Nice. I'm glad someone else is into it too. So I'm gonna let you finish your thought, Shelley, and bring the next dish up. I'm stoked. We're doing good on time, so I think we're gonna get through this just fine. So I'm gonna get up a little and come back right back.
Yeah, so you segued perfectly, because I was about to say, so planning your cooking and shopping around flavor and fresh ingredients rather than what meat you have on hand. Now, Arash had pointed this out, that a lot of the mindset is like, okay, I've got chicken, I need to make this, or I've got this tri-tip, I got to make this. But planning your meals differently, and planning around like actual things that you want to eat, planning around health, that would be better. Using fresh ingredients, focus on plants primarily, like fruits, veggies, whole grains. If you like meat and poultry and fish, yes, enjoy it as an accompaniment, but make yourself a dish and make the plants in your dish the actual focal point, and all the flavor, the spices, the herbs, those things, and then have your protein on the side. This way of thinking and planning can have a really big impact on your overall health and your risk for disease if you put kind of plants as the center focal point rather than having meat or your protein as the center piece of, with the exception, because most people aren't going to change that. So what's next?
All right. The next dish we're going to do is a little bit less known, but I wanted to intro it to everybody. It is a really wonderful dish. It's actually on most Thai menus. And if you've been to Thailand, you probably had it as well. It's called lap. It's spelled Laab or Laarb often, but it's pronounced lap. And it is a salad from the northeast of Thailand, from Isan, which is a province that uses a lot of fresh herbs. And man, it is some of the best food in Thailand. I know everywhere in Thailand can take the claim of saying it's the best, but I've eaten some of the food in Thailand, and there's a couple of restaurants actually locally here in the Bay Area that specialize in Isan cooking. So if you get a chance, go check it out. Their food is phenomenal. But this is a salad, like I said, you can see it on a lot of menus. It's usually made with a ground meat as the base, with like a bunch of herbs and other stuff mixed in. So I'm using impossible meat, but traditionally you can make this with ground pork and ground chicken are the two most common. Beef isn't eaten a lot in Thailand, but you could. But I'm using impossible plant-based meat. Obviously, if you don't, if you want to do regular meat or whatever, that's your choice. But all I'm gonna do is just start to brown up my impossible meat in a pan. But real quick, come check out. I just want to show you where our curry's at. So you can see that it's bubbling away really nicely. My veggies are getting there nice and cooked, and you see now there's plenty of liquid. This is what I meant, where I like to have enough liquid in there so that when you spoon this on rice, you've got some of that nice, beautiful liquid ready to go. So my curry is cooking up just fine. It's almost done. So I'm going to turn the heat way down, and I'm going to get my ground meat going for this lap, which is going to go on this nice little plate right here. So passing it back to you, Shelley.
All right. So I'm going to chat a little bit about plant-based meats because they're super big right now. They've sort of exploded over the last few years. So plant-based meats, they're still processed. That doesn't automatically make them healthier, unfortunately. I like the comparison of foods like white breads and tater tots. Both are vegan, but are they healthy? What is undeniable is that these plant-based meats are less impactful on the environment than beef is. Many of the meatless alternatives are fortified with nutrients that they lack to begin with. I've looked at comparisons between lean ground beef with 10% fat compared with Impossible Burger, they're pretty close. The 4 ounces of Impossible Burger versus 4 ounces of lean ground beef, very similar in calories, fat, protein. The plant version totally lacks cholesterol, which comes from animals. It has more saturated fat than beef, which is linked to increased LDL cholesterol, again, which is the artery clogging one. The saturated fat usually in plant alternatives is from coconut milk. Plant alternatives like this, they're very processed in order to mimic the taste, texture, smell of beef. And honestly, I feel like they are doing a really good job now of doing that, but it comes with a bit of a price. And one of the differences is the amount of salt in a lot of this and other ingredients in the Impossible meat. The takeaway though, is I would take Impossible meat and I would put that in the same category of the garnishing or accompaniment to your other ingredients that are more plant favorable. So meat and meat alternatives together, meant to accompany your main meal, is what I would do with these particular things. So sure, if you want to avoid eating meat and eating an Impossible Burger is kind of like a way for you to get away from eating red meat, that's great. But again, use these type things as like a side dish to go along with your main meal. Focus on single ingredient foods that grow in the ground, in a bush, in a tree. That's the way that I like to describe this to my patients, the simplest way possible. Foods that come in their natural package as much as possible. Learn to combine flavors like we've been talking about. Eat beans. Beans are fantastic. All different kinds of beans. Try to vary them. And then again, meat and plant-based meats on the side.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in real quick. And on that note, I actually like making this dish with a veggie version with usually either crumbled tofu or you can do like a combination of veggies like mushrooms and corn. I've seen a lot of different ways. There's great recipes out there. I chose this more because I wanted to make it more accessible for the people who don't want to be plant-based. I want to make it with ground meat, but I don't eat a lot of plant-based meat myself because of what Shelley was saying. It's kind of processed. It's not my favorite. I'd rather just use other real plants and stuff. But that's why I chose to go this route. So to make it more accessible to everyone. All I did was just brown this up for a couple of minutes. I added a little bit of water. I just recently learned that traditionally this dish in Isan, where it's from, when I was talking about, I didn't know this, they don't even cook the meat in oil. They cook it in water because oil was expensive and it's kind of one of a poorer region of Thailand. So they would just brown the meat in water. So I just learned that when I was doing research for this this session, but I did use a little bit of oil, but I did add a little bit of water as well. So I've got my ground meat cooking up nicely. I already gave this about a teaspoon of fish sauce. That's my main seasoning. And now I'm going to add some lime juice. I'm just using pre-squeezed lime juice to save time. There's nothing wrong with that. And you do want a good amount of acidity. So I'm going to add probably about 2 tablespoons of lime juice to this. And basically just mix that in. It smells so good. So, so good. And there's not many ingredients in here right now. And basically, what I'm going to do, the only other things that are going to go in here are sliced up shallots and a little bit of green onions. I'm going to put those in later because I want them not to cook too much, but I'm gonna add them in just a minute and then finish the dish off with some fresh herbs. So I'm going to add these in and give it right back to Shelley.
Okay, so we have another really good question. Any reason why you chose Impossible meat over Beyond Meat? I put them both in the same category. It's probably just a matter of availability for you. Is that right for this?
It was availability. Yeah, it was availability. Yeah. I actually kind of like Beyond a little bit better, but it's what I had and what I saw. So, is
there a reason why you like it a little better?
I just like the flavor a little bit better, especially in burgers. It has a little bit less of a chemically taste, I guess I'll say. Like I said, I don't use plant-based meat very much. But yeah, that's why I prefer the Beyond most of the time. But in this case, this fish is gonna have so much flavor that it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, yeah. So I really don't have a whole lot more to add for I've already talked about. I've kind of covered everything that I took notes on. I do want.
Sounds good. I can just wrap it up here in my.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that you're gonna get recipes, but I want everybody to play with their food. You know, make small, just kind of like get familiar with using different flavors and just try a little bit more. If you're not familiar with cooking, YouTube is there. Honestly, I wish YouTube had been around when I first started learning how to cook, but so these are really helpful, but definitely don't be afraid to play with different flavors and different foods and cuisines.
Okay. So I've got to let my camera person go in a minute. So I'm going to just finish one more thing and then turn the camera around. I turned the heat off. My meat is browned up nicely. My shallots, can you see, have just softened up a little, and my green onions as well. And then what really makes this dish great is fresh herbs. I'm using mint, fresh mint, and fresh cilantro. And again, I add those in at the end because I don't want them to like wilt and cook too much. But this area of Thailand, they use a ton of herbs. And this is a great way, Shelley's talked about this many times, but this is a great way to integrate herbs into your diet, fresh herbs that are so good for you and just taste so good. I'm just gonna dump the whole thing in. And then before I turn the camera around, I'm just gonna show you, I'm gonna serve it on this plate. I've just got some lettuce here, a little lime on the side for additional, and some bean sprouts and a little extra mint. And this is often how they'll serve it to a restaurant. Then you can take the lettuce and kind of do like lettuce cups. So you just grab a leaf of lettuce and scoop the meat, and then you've got like your nice little appetizer. So I'm gonna spoon this on here so you guys can see.
That's awesome.
And I mean, how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
Beautiful plant-based lap. And there's one final ingredient I'll talk about when I turn the camera around, but I'll just show you. There you go. Nice, beautiful Thai style lap salad. So I'm going to turn the camera around and want to mention one last ingredient in a moment. Okay. The last thing that goes in this that is absolutely, I would say, pretty necessary that I'm going to stir in is toasted rice powder. This is one of those specialty ingredients that you kind of need to get. And if you don't get it, it's not the end of the world, but if you do, it really makes the dish better. You can also make it yourself. All you do is just take some dry rice, dry roast it in a frying pan, and then like crush it up in a coffee grinder or mortar and pestle. But I bought it from the store. So I have this nice toasted rice powder, and it's got such a unique smell. And I'm gonna just sprinkle about a tablespoon of this onto the meat and to finish off the salad. And it just makes the flavor, combined with the lime juice and the fish sauce and all the aromatics and the herbs, it's out of this world. It's so good.
Arash, one of our audience members said she's glad we can't smell the food. It would be torture. You know,
Yeah.
Until we can get together all in person, I think we should invent like some kind of scratch and sniff thing that we send to our audience members to smell before the presentation. Because I'm telling you, this one I purposefully ate before this presentation because Franklin says I'm always drooling when we present, and he's probably right. So it's absolutely true. It is torture. And you keep describing it too.
Yeah, it is so, this Thai food, it's just so aromatic and smells wonderful and tastes great. And it's why I love the cuisine so much. It's full of just these strong flavors, garlic and chilies and herbs and lemongrass and ginger. And like, these are things that give a lot of flavor. And going back to the point Shelley was making about how to menu plan, Yeah, it's just this is what I do is I think about what do I want to eat, what is the dish I want to eat, like Shelley was saying, instead of like, oh, I've got this protein or animal product and what do I build around it. And I think when you kind of break that thinking a little bit, it can help eat a lot healthier. Even if you're already a vegetarian or if you're still eating meat or whatever, it'll just help you make smarter, healthier choices if you can kind of get out of like building around the protein. Because in most of the world outside of the US and Western Europe, the dishes aren't built around the meat. Meat is just an ingredient in a dish. You know, it's just one thing to be added. So as you saw, you know, tofu was just one element, or if you were using meat in the curry, it's just one element in the curry that I just made, or in the noodles. In this case, the salad's a little bit of an exception, but yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, we had a question. Is there
time.
a substitute in place of the impossible meat that you used?
So like I said, if you are a meat eater, ground pork or ground chicken. If you are not a meat eater, it's Impossible or Beyond Meat, or you can look up, there's a lot of other vegan or vegetarian versions. Like I said, you can do, I've seen mushrooms, I've seen corn, you can do a combination of things. But just look it up and see what you find. But that's, you need something chopped up really finely small. That's kind of what you're going for.
Yeah, if you're going to use chicken breast, preferably. You know, if you're going to use ground beef, try to use the leanest one that you can find, if you have to. You mentioned mushrooms. I want to say that mushrooms can really be hearty and filling. I don't know about any of you, but I've had portobello burgers be extremely filling, and I've been very satisfied with that. I haven't always been vegetarian. I do eat fish once in a while, but it really wasn't that hard to transition when I did years ago. So
yeah, and whatever you use, you want to chop it up really fine. So anyway, that's a separate point, but
yeah.
Very good. Well, we don't have any other questions that have been queued up.
I'm having a lettuce cup as we speak.
This is brutal.
How is it?
So good. So good. Just not spicy enough for me. So I got to add a bunch of chilies to mine.
So what you're going to add? What, just whole chili? Like throw a whole chili on there?
I'm going to add some chopped up Thai chilies or jalapeno or whatever I have to make it spicier. But it's so good. And there are so few ingredients there. And when you eat it with the lettuce or some of these other things, the fresh herbs, I've got more cilantro and mint I might add later on. But it's such a great dish. I really encourage it.
Cilantro is my favorite. I love cilantro and everything. We're lucky we have a greenhouse, so we have some herbs and a lot of lettuce and stuff growing right now. I don't know what I would do without it. I mean, I wouldn't have it then, I guess.
Yeah, just to put it, since there's no more question, I'll just say, you know, if you haven't done it, don't be intimidated by cooking Thai food. It's really not super hard. And as you see, you can get a lot of the ingredients now in really any store. I make pad Thai at home. You can buy ready-made pad Thai sauce these days, which is a big help because when you make the sauce from scratch, which I've made, it's tough. There's a lot of ingredients and it is harder to find stuff. So get out there and try it. And I'll send a link to this YouTube channel that I really love. She's just got so many great Thai recipes and ideas. I learned so much from her website and her YouTube. So check it out. I saw someone ask the brand of the fish sauce. I'll show it again as my cat is again trying to get into my food. It's Red Boat. This is one of the best ones you can get out there. And looks like that. And like I said, they sell it now at Trader Joe's. But I like it. I like it a lot. There's a different brand called Three Crabs that I like as well. Fish sauce is something you definitely, if you're at like the Asian store and you're looking at the different kinds, please don't skimp on it. The cheapest stuff is it's not as good. It's like with anything. Use good ingredients. You deserve it. You like it. It makes your food so much better. So don't skimp on your fish sauce, because better fish sauce will make your food taste so much better.
Excellent. Well, take that, everyone. 3 dishes in 50 minutes.
That was impressive,
That was
Arash. I
That was
don't
pretty
know if
good.
you could do that again.
Thank you
Hey,
again, Arash.
it's all in the style of the cooking, wok cooking and fast cooking. This is how it goes. You prep ahead of time and the cooking doesn't take long.
And I think that's one of the beauties of these presentations, that you show that how these things can be done in short order, that you don't need a 1 hour per meal kind of a process. So wonderful.
I'm a big fan of convenience too, definitely.
Yeah.
If you have convenient, healthy food, to eat healthfully. I mean,
Very good.
yeah.
Okay, everyone, hope you enjoyed tonight's presentation. And guess what? Next week, or next month, I should say, we are going to be taking a big leap over to the Middle East, where Arash and Shelley are going to be coming back with some Middle Eastern cuisine, specifically Persian cuisine, to celebrate the Persian New Year. So look for that. We'll get the word out about that event in the next couple of weeks. Arash, Shelley, thank you once again. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, we want to acknowledge our donors who make events like this possible. And then, as I mentioned, you will all receive an email within the next couple of days with a copy of the recording, as well as the recipes that Arash used. And we'll also include the link to that lady that he mentioned, who's an awesome Thai chef. So thank you, Arash. Thank you, Shelley, for your time. Hope you enjoyed tonight's presentation, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night and good rest of the week.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care,
Thanks for
everybody.
joining
Thank
us.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.